I was thinking about this, the unexpected nature of life sometime, and I thought, well, you know what? I need to be more out. I need to be more clear with my students where I'm from, what the journey was like to get here. Because, I am now, and I now have this privileged position that I can say these words, and people, and I don't care if people look down on me for it. No, I'm from a very poor rural background. Yes, I've lived in government housing. Yes, I've had to, my family's had to have food stamps. Yes, I had to make decisions based on what my family needed. Those are real things. And it's okay. You can come from that kind of a background and be a professor at one of the finest universities in the world. That can be your path. And so I had this okay, I'm going to be more upfront about this. I'm going to be clear about it because I don't feel like I have to hide it anymore, right? I don't have to feel like, wow, maybe I won't say exactly the right words, or people will look down on me for not having a fancy, background. I'm going to be who I am, and maybe that's going to empower somebody out there in the room to think they can do it too. Although I was born in Austin, I was raised in very small town Texas, a bunch of different small towns, and I can't remember a time when I didn't think that I wanted to go to college. That was something that was always an ideal goal. And I'm not really entirely sure why, because no one in my family at that point had ever been to college. And so I'm not sure why that became part of my destiny, but it absolutely did. I think so it really wasn't should I go to college or would I go to college. It was more about how to pay for it. That was absolutely a very interesting question when I was in high school. And I'm not entirely sure what would have happened, but I ended up becoming a National Merit Scholar. And if you know anything about the program, you take this random test when I think you're a junior, and if you score really well on it, you get into this competition and things happen. And if you get accepted, at least at that time, into your top choice university, which for me was the University of Texas at Austin, because I was born and raised in Texas, they agree to pay for or to provide you with financial aid between what your family can do and what the cost of education at that place is. That was kind of a godsend because suddenly I went from not knowing how I was possibly going to pay for all of this stuff to say, okay, you just keep your nose clean and at least the cost of education will be paid for. So that included room and board in the dorms and tuition and some book money. So that was huge. That was a huge thing. So I guess that was the big part of the journey, was figuring out the finances, and I think that's true for a lot of people. So I lived in the dorm, and my dorm, the number of people who lived in my dorm was bigger than the entire town, the entire size of the town that I graduated from high school from. It was its own zip code, right? The dining room was this enormous room with it was kind of shocking. And that was a dorm on campus. That was not the campus. Because, UT Austin then and now is a huge, huge campus. So there's a little bit of a culture shock there. Obviously I'd been to the big town. It's not like I'd lived my whole life in a tiny town, but just the sheer number of people and I didn't know anybody. I really just didn't know anybody. And so that was very different. That was very different than the life I had lived before. It was exciting in many ways because there was all this stuff going on. but it was very daunting in other ways. So, yeah, that first day, yeah, it was like, who am I going to be here? You know? And how is that even going to work out? I mean, it did, but wow. Huh. It absolutely affects how I act in the classroom, how I act in, in really everything I do as a faculty member. I'll tell you one other thing, so you really shouldn't get me started on these things, but, I was teaching when the Virginia Tech shootings occurred, right? Like I was teaching that quarter, and it changed forever how I thought about the classroom, right? I think it did for anybody that was in that moment with us. And then a few years later, I had a student in my class die for like jaywalking across the street late at night, right? And that changed forever how I thought about being a professor, how I thought about, the kids, if you'll allow me to say that, in my care, right? I've had many, many students come to me with many. It always changes how you think about it, and how you act in the room. And I think that projecting your real self, how you really feel about these things, is a really important part these days of being a faculty member. So the first thing I would say is, don't be me and not go and talk to faculty, and don't be that person, that shy if shy maybe isn't the right word, but that reticent person, right, that thinks, oh, what I think isn't good enough to be heard. Don't be that person. Be the person that, even if you're nervous about it, go and introduce yourself, go to office hours, talk to people. Because there are a lot of us out there that's kind of why we do this thing, is we love talking to students. So that would be the first thing. Don't be me. Be better than me. I would, to parents, wow. To parents, it's your child is going to change. And they're going to be different than they were before. That is the point of a university education, is for people to grow. But they're still going to be your kid, right? They're still going to be the one that you fed Cheerios to in the morning, and took to soccer practice, or whatever it is in your life that y'all did. And so help them hang in there through the difficult times, because there will be difficult times being in this place that can be so unfamiliar and intimidating. Very non-traditionally. So my undergraduate degree is UT Austin, civil engineering structures, and I did not know anything about anthropology until, because I was raised in small town Texas. Let me tell you, anthropology and evolution is really not on the top of the curriculum then or now. But I had to have a social science elective, right? Like all engineers do. And so I opened, at that time it was a book, the time schedule, and looked for something that fit into my schedule. And it ended up being this course in human evolution. And I walked in the door the first day, and I was blown away. I didn't know this stuff. I didn't know I did not know anything about this topic. And I loved it. I loved it instantaneously. But I was a junior in engineering, and I had family responsibilities, and so I got my engineering degree. And I helped my parents. I loved anthropology, and so I did it on the side. I was thinking maybe someday I'll get to go back. Well, someday eventually occurred, and so I was looking for places where my husband could have a good job, and that I could go to graduate school. And interestingly enough, Washington, University of Washington, had a program that I was really interested in, and my husband Brian could have a position here in town. And so it seemed like that was a great place. So I actually went to graduate school here at the University of Washington. And by the time I graduated, life, I had a small son, my husband had a good job, and my mother was living with us. And those are all very wonderful things, but they don't really make it easy to pick up and move across the country to be a postdoc someplace. So I ended up doing my postdoctoral work in the Department of Orthopedics and Sports Medicine here at UW. And I met some absolutely fabulous folks that I still work with, and I learned this whole other part of the world of how medicine is impacted by and influenced by evolution and engineering. And that worked out really, really well. And then I ended up being asked by some people in the anthropology department to help out with some courses, hey, will you teach a class for us, kind of a thing. And one class ended up being 5 classes, ended up being, a whole research trajectory back in anthropology. And eventually I moved back full-time to the department that I had originally gotten my PhD from, which is not the traditional path for a faculty member. Normally faculty are from other places. And I like to think that, I went to orthopedics and spent that time there, and so I was really away. But I think the interesting piece of it, at least, is it's staying in the game. At least this is what I call it. It's finding a way to do what you love, to stay in the game, to be able to have the life that you want. I wanted to have a family. I needed to be able to help my mother and Brian's dad. These were important parts of my life, and so I kind of, the compromise was on the professional side, maybe, if you want to put it that way. But it worked out in the end because I stayed in the game, and for that, there's a lot of people who helped me stay in the game. So now I want to make that happen for other people. So that's how I came here. All of us here at the University of Washington, students, faculty, staff, are privileged to be part of this wonderful experience. It's all of our responsibilities to grab hold of that privilege, to make it a better place, and to ensure that other people have the opportunity. And I think a lot of people, if it's a hard path to get to the place, you kind of want to sit and enjoy it for a while, and that's fine. You can enjoy it for a while, but you have an obligation, in my opinion at least, to make the place better and to pass it on to other people.